Apples gets so dry. It's okay.
Oh, no. Is it?
Hi, it is Thursday, July 6, 2023, and we are here for the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. First issue is to call this meeting to order with a roll call. William,
William Scales, present.
present. Jeff Fleschauer, absent. Greg Caesar, I am present. Lee?
Lee Reeves, present.
Lee is present, and Jonathan Langley, the chair, is absent this evening, which is why me, the vice chair, is running things. So we'll begin with consideration of approval of the May 4th, 2023 meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion has been made and is approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All approved. Seeing no in opposition, the motion is approved. Next item on the agenda is our announcements. Staff?
We don't have any other than that we are still planning the training session. Look in your emails and we're going to set a date for August.
Thank you, Amy. I saw the email this evening for August. Hopefully, we can get that coordinated and get that on the schedule. Moving on from announcements to the first item on our agenda, our first item on the variance agenda tonight is listed as item number 2. A variance request to allow a 21-foot encroachment into the required 35-yard setback, side yard setback for an existing principal building for the property located at 328 Franklin Road. Staff?
Thank you and good evening. The subject property is located at 328 Franklin Road and is zoned ER Estate Residential. This property is located within the Central Franklin Overlay, Historic Preservation Overlay, and the 500-foot buffer of Hillside Overlay. Because the property is within the Historic Preservation Overlay, the proposed additions will need to be approved by the HZC. The variance request is regarding the side yard setback for the existing principal building. The principal building was built in the 1950s on 3 lots that were each 70 feet wide. The principal building was originally built approximately 14 feet from the side lot line, and the proposed addition to the principal building would not bring the building any closer to that side lot line. The existing detached garage and carport in the backyard meet the side yard setback requirements for an accessory structure, and the proposed addition to the detached garage also meets the side yard setbacks for accessory structures. I will now go into staff analysis. The BZA may authorize a variance only when the request has met all 3 criteria in accordance with the Franklin zoning ordinance and state law. Criteria 1, where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property at the time of the enactment of the zoning ordinance, or by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions, such a piece of property is not able to accommodate development as required under this ordinance. The principal building was built in the 1950s across 3 narrow lots, and the plat for this property did not list side yard setbacks. The principal building was built much closer to the side lot line than the current zoning ordinance allows, and they are not requesting that the principal building move any closer to that side lot line. Because the house was built in the 1950s and is within the historic district, it will need to get recommendation from the HCC. The HCC, or the Historic Zoning Commission, will likely not permit the property owner to move the existing house given its historic nature. Staff finds this criteria is met. Criteria 2. The strict application of any provision enacted under the zoning ordinance would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties for or exceptional or undue hardship upon the owner of the property. Provided the applicant is given the predicted recommendation from the HCC, they will likely not be able to move the existing principal building. This means the principal building would not be able to comply with the 35-foot side yard setback required for estate residential zoning. Staff finds this criteria is met. Criteria 3. Such relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. Staff finds that this request would not be a detriment to the public good and would not substantially impair the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. The proposed renovations and additions will not encroach any closer to the side lot line than the existing principal building and attached garage already are. For this reason, the request would not negatively affect the nature of the neighborhood and views from the street. Staff finds this criteria is met. Staff recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals move to approve the variance request to allow a 21-foot encroachment into the required 35-foot side yard setback for an existing principal building for the property located at 328 Franklin Road because the criteria for granting a variance have been met.
Thank you, staff. Now's the time where we open the public comment. Are there any citizen comments on this issue? Seeing none, staff, are there any other notifications or regarding public comments that we have received, either email or phone calls?
No.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to close the public comment.
Motion closed.
Second.
Seeing a motion and second, taking a vote, aye or nay?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes to close. The public comment has been closed. This time, the chair would entertain a motion or discussion.
Chair, is the applicant here to talk about the, no? Okay.
Great question. Probably should have started that with that. Is the applicant in attendance for the first item?
The door right now.
There he is.
Is this the applicant?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Ah, just in time.
Good timing.
You are.
Are you the applicant of 328 Franklin Road, the property at 328 Franklin Road? All right. Well, we've just kind of gone over the staff report. Are there any comments that you would like to make?
Really just trying to do a reasonable addition.
Before you do it, can you introduce yourself, give us your address? and
I
your name?
represent the homeowner. My name's Matt Christensen. Trying to help her update the house and maybe put on a little bit extra footage for her and her family. We're just pretty much just trying to do a reasonable addition on that property. And when it was constructed, I think back in the 50s, it was, I would imagine it was built on 3 lots. Well, it was built on 3 lots, and they placed it all the way over to one side of the 3 lots. Maybe with the intent of putting another structure on the other side, who knows? But so they kind of pushed it all the way to the south side of the property, which kind of makes it hard to get that 35-foot setback that they are now requiring when the house currently sits about 14 feet from the property line. So we're just trying to maintain that 14-foot setback with an addition on the back of the property.
Okay.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I'm looking at the plans, but I'm unclear as to what's being added.
And staff or I may be able to help clarify
Sure.
that, because if you go to the, staff, if you can pull up, what is this called? Submittal documents, I believe. And maybe, Mr. Christensen, if you can help us based on these submittal documents, understand what is new And I think it's probably closer to page A5. Or maybe the better one to look at is A4.
So really, we're going to extend that master bedroom and that back porch. This kind of would be all a new proposed addition space. Where that front corner, right by the arrow, nope, right down, just on the, right there, that corner is the existing structure. So if you were to go back to the site map or the overview, you'd kind of see Yep. Right there is the existing. And so that pretty much goes parallel with the front of the house.
So is it fair to say on A4, everything that is in dark? If you go down, you can see it's kind of bolded on A4. That is new construction with
Pretty much, yes,
the
sir.
lighter,
Yeah.
lighter
Yep,
lines being established or existing?
correct.
Okay. Okay. So this is near. Okay.
Down here.
Gotcha.
So the south side over here, they're not going to find it that way, they're going
Tw-
east.
Is that towards the outbuildings?
No, so. if you look at
Are the
it's
outbuildings
toward the-
remaining? They're,
The garage,
This.
yes, everything, the garage stays is really the only,
It's not going to come this way.
got it. I gotcha. Okay. Great. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Christian.
More questions? Juan?
I don't have any more questions, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion if you are ready to entertain a motion.
Sure.
Okay. I recommend that, I move that we allow a 21-foot encroachment into the required 35-foot side yard setback for the existing principal building for the property located at 328 Franklin Road, because the criteria for granting a variance have been met.
Yeah, I'd like to second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion on the motion?
Well, the only discussion I have is that, we've looked at the criteria, staff has looked at the criteria. I have tracked along that, and I think those criteria have been met. Of course, that's, under the zoning ordinance, we've got to meet all three of those criteria in order to grant a variance. And so I think the argument's compelling.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing that, I'd like to take a vote on the motion that is before us, which is to allow the 21-foot encroachment into the 35-foot side yard setback. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 3, a variance request to allow 4 wall signs to be placed above the main roof line of a principal building for the property located at 5019 Aspen Grove Drive. Staff report, and this time we'll get the applicant before we move forward. So applicant, be ready, you're coming up in a bit.
Thank you. The subject property is located at 5019 Aspen Grove Drive. The property is zoned PD Plan District and is within the McEwen Place subdivision.
Shake Shack.
The principal building has already been approved and built with the exception of signage. The existing building has parapets surrounding the building, which is consistent with other buildings within the McEwen Place subdivision. The business that will be occupying the building is Fink's Jewelers. Fink's Jewelers is proposing to place 4 Fink's Jewelers business signs, one on each side of the building, on the existing parapets. Although the parapets surrounding the building give the illusion of the main roof line of the building is below the height of the parapets. Because the proposed placement of the signs is above the main roof line of the building, the applicant is requesting a variance to place the signs above the main roof line of the principal building. I will now go into staff analysis. Criteria 1, where by reason of exceptional narrowness, shallowness, or shape of a specific piece of property at the time of the enactment of the zoning ordinance, or by reason of exceptional topographic conditions or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions, such a piece of property is not able to accommodate development as required under this zoning ordinance. There are other principal buildings within the McEwen Place subdivision whose existing signage is similar to the requested signage placement. As shown in the applicant's submittal, these businesses have their signage located above the roof line. However, the requirements for signage being located below the roof line are clearly outlined in the zoning ordinance, and signage is not approved with the site plan. The condition that makes this situation unique is that the principal building was already built before Fink's Jewelers became involved and proposed their signage. This limits Fink's Jewelers' options for signage placement. The existing building is designed similar to other buildings within the McEwen Place subdivision, with parapets wrapping around the whole building. Because Fink's Jewelers have been given unique and limited options for signage placement on the existing principal building, staff finds this criteria is met. Criteria 2. The strict application of any provision enacted under the zoning ordinance would result in peculiar and exceptional practical difficulties for or exceptional or undue hardship upon the owner of the property. Staff finds no peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties for the owner of the property. Staff finds this criteria is not met. Criteria 3. Such relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. Staff finds that this request would not be a detriment to the public good and would not substantially impair the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. Given that there are other buildings in the McEwen Place subdivision with similar signage placement, the requested signage placement for Fink's Jewelers would not negatively affect the aesthetic nature of the surrounding area. This design also meets the intent of the zoning ordinance. The intent of the ordinance in this case is to ensure that building signage does not overwhelm the view from the street and to avoid false parapets for the sake of signage placement. The design for this building signage matches the building surrounding it, and the parapet goes around the whole building, so it gives the illusion of being on the roof line, or being the roof line, sorry. Staff finds this criteria is met. Staff recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals move to deny the variance request to allow 4 signs to be placed above the main roof line of a principal building for the property located at 5019 Aspen Grove Drive because the criteria for granting a variance have not all been met. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Is the applicant here? Could you please come up and introduce yourself?
We'll be a little bit old school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just pictures, no words.
Thank you. Okay.
My name is Madison Haynes, and I'm the attorney for the applicant with Bradley Arent Bolt Cummings, and our address is 1600 Division Street, Nashville, Tennessee 37203. And I have with me here Gary Clifton, who is the security and property manager for Fink's Jewelers. Also have John Harden, who is a representative from Bowl, who is the property owner. And I also have Mark Pirtle here. He's the VP of Operations at MTLC Building Group, if we have any technical questions that we need to discuss regarding construction of the building. What we hope to show tonight is to provide you enough information to really demonstrate that we believe that the second criteria has been met with the fact of the undue hardship to Finks's marketing plan as well as consistency with the surrounding development. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gary.
Gary, just for clarification, you're Gary Clifton with
With Fink's Jewelers.
Fink's Jewelers? Okay,
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
And my address is 3545 Electric Road in Roanoke, Virginia.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Welcome to Franklin.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're really excited to be here. I just want to take a second and thank Ariella and the staff for their work on this. As Madison said, I'm the security and property manager for Finks Jewelers. Finks is a family-owned business currently run by third and fourth generation of the Fink family. The company was founded in Roanoke, Virginia in 1930 with over the past 93 years has grown to include 10 stores throughout Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. The family has created a strong foundation of trust, value, unsurpassed customer service, which I have witnessed myself, having been there for 42 years. It's crazy to say that, but I've been there since I was 15. Finks Jewelers is one of the largest fine timepiece and jewelry retailers in the Southeast. Of the many brands we represent, Rolex is the most sought after with an immense market share and demand. As such, when we explore new opportunities, we focus on where we can both represent Rolex and serve the community by building relationships that last for generations. With the only official Rolex jeweler in the market at Green Hills, we felt that Franklin would be better served with a high-quality jeweler representing brands such as Rolex, David Yurman, and Cartier, and many other sought-after designers. We feel it's important to mention that Rolex considered several peer retailers for the second point of distribution, including areas such as the urban core of Nashville and 12 South. However, Finks Jewelers was ultimately selected due to the strength of our location along with our reputation of building high-quality, well-run stores with knowledgeable associates. As you know, we're seeking a variance so that the store's exterior wall signs can be installed above the building's roof line on the parapet wall, similar to other retailers and restaurants around us. Criteria 1 and 3 have been met. Here is a list of exceptional difficulties for criteria 2. Finks has been given a unique and limited options for signage placement on the existing principal building. Any signage below the roof line would need to be considerably smaller and much harder to see. In addition, because our store is situated downhill of the main entrance to McEwen north side on Aspen Grove Drive and uphill from the larger development to the north of the property, any signage below the roof line is significantly obstructed. The denial of this variance would force us to have inadequate signage and poor visibility, which in turn would be detrimental to our business. After all, the better the visibility, the better the sales will be, and the more tax revenue for the city of Franklin. I respectfully request that you grant our variance request and permit the exterior signage to be installed on the parapet walls. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Is there anyone else that would like to speak from the applicant side? If you'll just make sure you let us know your name, since there's got a few written down here, want to put faces and names together.
I'm John Harlan with Boyle Investment Company, 2000 Meridian Boulevard, Franklin, Tennessee, 37067. We're the owner and operator and developer of McEwen Northside. And really, I'm here more of in support from the McEwen Property Owners Association relative to the points Gary made related to the zoning ordinance and probably the intention of the zoning ordinance and what that's really trying to deter related to this sign above the roof line. If you look consistently throughout developments we've done in Franklin, examples would be Berry Farms, other things within the Cool Springs area that these variances have either been granted or not noticed related to the roof screens that are provided and necessary for HVAC equipment, rooftop equipment, et cetera. If you look at the actual layout, I was actually on the roof today. If you look at the layout of the parapet wall for the building, the smallest height of a parapet wall, probably above the roof line's about close to 4 feet. I think the sign they have laid out bifurcates. You know, we try to limit that to be equal distance from top and bottom of the sign band. So you're really looking at potentially 2 to 3 feet. That is half of that sign that's going over the top of that roof line. And all in all, it's consistent, I think, with signage that's already been approved within the development itself. I could point directly to a neighboring property, the Spring Hill Suites, which we don't own, but it's part of the development, where they've got a sign that's probably a full, 2 to 3 feet above that, where the sign starts for the sign for the building. So we feel it's consistent with what's been, approved to date, and what we have from the Architectural Review Committee with Boyle tried to uphold there, and would just like that consideration to be taken into for y'all.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Can I ask John a question? Is that okay?
Sure.
When you guys built the property, what was your intent for the signage?
Intent for the signage?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think realistically, you want to have signage that's visible. You want to have something that's tastefully done. I think I can, speak from experience, we're very stringent when it comes to signage approval. So there's a separate architectural review committee established by the PUD with all the owners of the association there. Related to that building itself, I don't think there was any intent that was to have a larger than normal signage or create any inconvenience.
But I mean placement, right? Because you were aware of the zoning ordinance that limited the placement above the roof line, right?
We were aware of that. I don't believe we felt that what would be probably consistent with how that zoning ordinance had maybe been interpreted previously, that would be an issue. And looking at the user that we had with that sign and what we had, related to the how large of an area we're working with there for the square footage, I think we're trying to do whatever we can to maximize a tenant's ability to use what they're allowed to do on that surface area, granted with Franklin codes. So there was no intent necessarily to create any kind of larger sign or anything of that nature. So I don't know if that helps answer your question or.
Well, more curious. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. And was there another business there previously?
There was not. This is a brand new building.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, and I'll clean up that just real quick. I think that importantly, looking at two items is really the topography of the area, because I know that variances really need to be based on the physical characteristics of the property, and adding, undue hardship to them. That, as you can see from the tabs 1 and 2, with cars on the road, any sign that is, we have depictions in there of how the sign would have to be consistent with the code. And you can see that it would render that sign really unseemly and really just obstructed from both the eastbound and the westbound lanes.
Can I ask a question, Ms.
Sure.
Cummings? There's a lot of pictures in here.
Yeah,
And I'm trying to see, I'm assuming that's what you're showing here in these first few?
Yeah,
Is
so.
with the sign in a compliant.
Yes, tab 4 is the only tab that shows the sign in the way it was hopefully to be if the variance were to be approved.
Okay.
The earlier tabs 1 and 2 show it in a compliant manner.
Okay.
So the decorative scroll work above the lettering of things, that could be signage, but it's used as decorative space right now.
I
Right?
think that's brick.
Is that?
It's a custom metalwork that's been in that type of style has been incorporated into Thinx's newer stores. So it's kind of a brand. It's a branding look as well. But yes, theoretically. But again, the building and the design for the building have already been underway in construction, and so I don't know that that's actually feasible at this point. On removing that from the plans and doing that. I also have, we have somebody from construction here that could maybe speak to that, if you have any further questions.
Well, I had more curiosity as to, how we ended up in a place we can't go backwards.
Yeah, and that's something that, that I think that Boyle and potentially the construction could speak to. I don't want to speak out of turn with my lawyer hat on and not my construction hat on. But, the second thing is that outside of the topography is that I think they're really just Finks is really looking to be treated consistently with all the other signs and all the other buildings, Perry's, Shake Shack, Spring Hill Suites, that are shown in tab 3, all of which are relatively new and I assume were constructed under the same zoning ordinance that's in place right now. And so I think that to have a consistent look, as John discussed, through the McEwen Northside development, to really be aesthetically harmonious is important and something that they're looking for. So.
Well, I would like to ask staff about those other projects in a moment, but maybe we can.
Yeah, I only have one question. There is an application, or there's a photograph here which depicts the Finks up high and down low. Is there a limit on the number of signs you can put?
Is that in tab 4?
It is.
I don't know that the intent, I think that I can speak that if the variance were to be granted, that may just be a artistic error.
We could remove one and we could. So the intent is not to have 2 signs.
Yes, the intent would be, we would love to just have it look like this.
Okay.
Yes. And so we just hope that we have brought enough information here to you all tonight to help make a decision, especially as to criteria 2, and that we respectfully request that our variance application be granted. And we're happy to answer any more questions as you all have with staff, but I won't take any more of your time.
I appreciate your help. Thank
Absolutely.
you for helping my eyes see that that's decorative
Yes,
metalwork and
no.
not bricks.
Yes.
But anyone else from the applicant's side would like to speak? Seeing none, I'd like to open the public comment. Are there any citizen comments? Anyone from the community that would like to speak, either in opposition or support? Seeing none, staff, are there other comments that we received from the public?
No.
No other comments? At this point, I'd entertain a motion to close the public comment.
Move to close public comment.
Motion has been made
Second.
and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed?
I'd like to ask a couple questions of staff, but I'm not sure if I need to make a movement or move to approve or deny in order to get to that point.
I think if the questions are going to affect the motion that you would put forward, I think now would be the right time to ask those
All right,
questions.
perfect. So the applicant.
Unless I see legal over there leaning forward.
Does that sound right?
I was poised in case you gave the wrong answer. That was the correct answer.
Okay,
If,
thank you. Okay.
if you have factual information
Sorry,
you need from
Lee.
staff,
No, that's good. No, I
yeah,
appreciate
factual
it.
information from staff is perfectly fine.
Sure.
All right, perfect.
Thank you.
So we've heard from the applicant that there are several buildings around this location that seem to have signage maybe above the roof line or certainly on a parapet wall of some sort. Is that accurate? Have variances been granted in order to achieve that? Can you speak to that at all?
Good evening. There are some signage that is in that surrounding area that goes above the roof line. It was reviewed and approved. Staff is human and sometimes misses, can miss some things. And we've had quite a bit of turnover. So, yes, there are some.
There are some. Okay.
There are some.
Can you speak to the?
But none have received variances.
Okay, gotcha. Can you speak to the purpose of the ordinance?
Yes, the intent is to prevent these large parapets being built specifically to house signage and creating an unsightly look for the city.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have further questions?
I certainly have questions. I think I would go back to the fact that we're here on discussion of this particular variance that's being requested, and we appreciate the process that the applicant has gone through with city staff to make sure that they're doing things the right way, and we appreciate that. Irrespective of the outcome, we appreciate the fact that you're following the right process.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So just to confirm, if we did grant this variance, this would be the first time that such a variance has been granted for this particular area. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
And I don't have the most exposure to this, but the first time a signage variance for this property or this area has been granted.
Correct.
So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion, and
Well, I have some thoughts on it, but I'm not sure if it's germane before a motion is made. So,
I say, let's hear your thoughts.
Sure.
And we will make amends based on that.
yeah. Well, so as to criteria number 2, staff finds that there are no exceptional practical difficulties for the owner, and of course, we've heard from the owner that they may have to, redo some of their design work. I think we find ourselves in a difficult position when we've got an applicant that comes in and says that, we've done design work, we'd have to redo it, so therefore you should grant a variance. Because I think what we may find over time is that that's a strategy.
Leah, I don't want to interrupt, but
Please.
I do believe we should probably get a motion.
yeah.
in
Oh,
front
I'm
of us
sorry,
to
I
have the
thought-
discussion.
Yeah.
No, I
Sure.
initially I said okay, and then I
Yeah.
saw we kind of steered this direction.
Got it. No
So let's get a
worries.
motion together. We can discuss a motion and speak about these particular things because I think they're germane. But I think in order to follow proper rules, Robert's Rules of Orders, we'd want that motion up before the discussion could happen.
Well, I'll make a motion to deny, but for the sake of having the conversation.
Sure.
For now.
Up for discussion is a motion to deny, not up for discussion. Right now, we have a motion to deny approval. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made to deny, and there is a second by Mr. Scales. Now, discussion?
Yeah, well, so to dip back into the discussion of criteria 2, I don't want to find ourselves as a board in a situation where it becomes a strategy to come to the board, having done a lot of the work and say, well, gee, I can't go back now. So that's concern number 1. Under criteria 3, I know that opinion of staff was that there would not be a substantial detriment to the public good or without substantially impairing the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. And I think they're probably right as to the public good. I do have concern, though, about impairing the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. We're not aware of a variance being granted for signage in this case. This would be the first one. And I do have some concern that sets a precedent that we don't intend to create. And so I do have some concern that may be what happens here in impairing the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. So, but I'd be interested to hear thoughts on that.
My initial thought is that every ordinance stands on its own. And so setting precedents, while it's often discussed, and while we're constantly reminded by applicants and sometimes others that there are lots of others in the community that look like this, even if they're violating or in alignment with the rules, The reason you set standards within your community is to prevent those things going forward. Right? You may not be able to go back and change what's happened in the past, right, wrong, oversight, indifference, but you should use this opportunity to either support the regulations and rules that we've put in place and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen have voted on and supported, or we should use this as an opportunity to find that it does fit criteria number 2. And I would stand on the other side of this and say that given the property, given where it is, given the, that strict application of this zoning ordinance would result in a peculiar and exceptional practical difficulty for the owner and potentially for the business operator that would want to occupy this property. Effectively, you're setting an unfair advantage for those who have better and more visible signs because of our decision to strictly apply the zoning ordinance.
Let me ask a question.
Sure.
Is this condition created by, not necessarily the applicant, but by the building that was created? And is this something that could have been avoided? Or is this an opportunity, like you said, to apply the ordinance at this point in time? Likely, I struggle with the ordinance was known at the time the building was created. Although we talk about, you've made your discussion about precedent, I do think we need to be mindful that if we frequently allow deviations ahead of time and then don't enforce as we should, then, what good is an ordinance that's not enforced? So that's the challenge that I have. I don't disagree with you, and you too, that there are others who in the past have maybe not complied with the ordinance, but I don't know that that alone should compel us to grant the variance. And then in terms of putting the occupant at a disadvantage, is the ordinance putting them at a disadvantage, or is the way the building was constructed putting them at a disadvantage? It goes back to my first question. And so, is this a self-created problem? I think it is. Should we disregard the ordinance because of that self-created problem? I struggle to say yes at this point.
And I think one of the most compelling arguments, honestly, that has been made so far is the book of pictures showing all of the other properties around, but that's also maybe the most compelling argument to find that permitting the variance would impair the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. So I think that cuts both ways.
I certainly don't disagree, and I can see through both lenses here. I mean, the applicant's an intelligent group, and they put the pictures together for a reason, right? I still have trouble seeing how enacting this zoning ordinance, I think there's 2 pieces that are open in my mind. The first is, why did the Board of Mayor and Aldermen put this ordinance in place? And you asked that question earlier. And the second is, I don't think they put it in place for it not to be upheld.
Right.
And maybe the third item for me to think through tonight is maybe the way that the building owner responded to your question about what were your signage plans before. And this should be something that building owners who are building in our community a lot should be very well aware of. And I appreciate that Boyle has an entire design crew that reviews signage and takes that into consideration.
And looking at the picture here, I think some of the limitation on signage is created by the design that we thought was brick, but is something else. So, I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
The motion is to deny. The motion has been made. The motion has been seconded. I maybe should say this, that I think we have to consider as we continue to develop as a city, when we put ordinances in place, that we have a reason for those ordinances to be in place, because I think it provides, I'll say it again, I think it provides an unfair advantage to those who have not adhered to those ordinances and who have been allowed to build property and allowed to put signage in an area that is outside of that ordinance. And unfortunately, it penalizes groups that kind of get caught, potentially could penalize groups that get caught. And that leaves us in a very, very unique position as Board of Zoning Appeals to make a decision to a group that is following the rules and is going through the right process.
Yeah. With that, I'd like to call a question.
Question has been called. All in favor of the motion which is on the table to deny the variance? Say aye.
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 And I'll vote opposed, so the ayes have it, 2 in favor of denying the variance and 1 opposed to denying the variance. Motion carries. Let's see. The next item on the agenda is any new business from staff?
Only one more.
There is one more?
Only one more, yeah.
I'm losing my pages here. Sorry. Yep, there we are. Number 4, an appeal of an administrative decision classifying a use as clinic and thereby prohibiting the use in the downtown district for the property located at 212 East Main Street. Staff?
Thank you. The subject property is located at 212 East Main Street and is zoned downtown district. Rourke Orthodontics and Aesthetics is seeking an administrative appeal of decision based on the zoning determination letter given to them by the city's zoning administrator, Shanna McCoy. The business is proposing to provide aesthetic services and smile alignment. The zoning determination letter determined this use to be classified as a clinic. Staff does not recommend approval or disapproval of this item, as this is an appeal of a staff decision.
Good evening. I'll take a second to introduce myself officially for the newest members that I have not appeared before. I'm Shanna McCoy. I am the city's zoning and floodplain administrator. Been with the city for 16 and a half years, so we don't have administrative appeals on a regular basis, so this is maybe the first one that you've come across. But the history on this and how I came to my determination is on April the 5th of 2023, Building and Neighborhood Services staff received a building plan submittal for the remodel of the structure located at 212 East Main Street. The building is located within the Downtown Zoning District, Historic Preservation Overlay, and the Central Franklin Overlay. The building plans indicated that it was a remodel from a general office to a dentist office. Beyond the normal waiting room, staff lounge, and private office, the plans also indicated that there would be 5 treatment rooms, a sterilization area, a consultation room, a lab, and an imaging room. As is in normal process during this review, zoning staff checked the zoning district to verify the proposed use was permitted. Staff considered this use to be a clinic, per the permitted use chart 5.1.3 of the zoning ordinance. Clinics are not a permitted use in the downtown district. The zoning ordinance defines a clinic as an establishment providing therapeutic, preventative, or corrective medical treatment or healthcare services. Activities include healthcare appointments, medical procedures, surgical procedures, emergency treatment, diagnostic services, walk-in medical services, and other health-related care. Services are provided on an outpatient basis, generally requiring a stay of less than 24 hours. Upon receiving the plan review comments, the applicant reached out to me to clarify that this would be an orthodontist office, not a regular dentist office. I advised that they should request a zoning determination letter for an official determination of use. Upon receiving the determination request, I reviewed the applicant's description of the use as well as the building plans. I also considered some of the services an orthodontist can offer. Beyond most often thought of services of braces, an orthodontist may also extract teeth, perform x-ray services, provide some prescriptions, and can provide treatment for TMJ, which is considered a medical disorder, not just a dental disorder. I also considered that orthodontists are considered doctors, either a DDS, a doctor of dental surgery, or a DDM, doctor of dental medicine. I determined the use most closely meets the definition of a clinic rather than a personal service. Personal service is defined in the zoning ordinance as an establishment that primarily engages in providing services generally involving the care of the person or person's possessions. Personal services include laundry and dry cleaning services, barbershops, salons, day spas, informational and instructional services, tanning salons, photography services, and other personal care services. Services associated with an animal are not included in this definition. The applicant has stated in their appeal to the board that they may also be offering some of the services offered in a day spa. If this is the case, my determination would remain the same for the orthodontic portion of the business. I would determine that this is a mix of uses, clinic and personal service. This would not alter the determination that a clinic is not permitted in the downtown district. Staff does recognize that there are several legally non-conforming eye clinics and dental clinics within the downtown area. Legally non-conforming as they were legally established before a zoning ordinance change that would now prohibit them. They are allowed to remain until such time as they are converted to a conforming use or discontinued or abandoned for a period of 30 months as specified by Tennessee Code Annotated 13-7-208. As the zoning administrator for the City of Franklin, I am charged with overseeing the zoning ordinance to ensure enforcement of the provisions of this ordinance, investigate zoning uses, and determine applicability of each use as defined in the ordinance. An applicant does have the ability to file for an appeal of administrative decision within 30 days of the date of the determination. The applicant has met that criterion. Per section 20.18.6 of the zoning ordinance, for administrative decisions other than map revisions, the order, decision, determination, or interpretation shall not be reversed or modified unless there is competent material and substantial evidence in the record that it fails to comply with either the procedural or substantive requirements of this ordinance and state law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCoy. Anyone else from staff? No? Is the applicant present? And would you please come to the microphone and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Ashley Roark, and I did just want to first thank you all for going back and forth with my contractor so much. I know he's probably annoyed you a whole lot. And thank you all for hearing me today. The first thing I'd
Would
like
you
to...
grab that microphone?
Yes,
Oh,
I'm
there we
sorry.
go.
I did not become an orthodontist for my public speaking abilities. I'm
No
sorry.
worries.
The first thing I'd like to do is just kind of elaborate on what I do. I think staff did a good job. We are primarily straightening teeth and aligning bites in orthodontics. And we do that with braces and Invisalign primarily. You know, we do have patients wear elastics, rubber bands, and things to help align the bite, but it's primarily braces and Invisalign. Some of the things that I do not do, I do not treat infection, I do not treat decay, I do not treat periodontal disease, I do not extract teeth, I do not do fillings, even cleanings, root canals, any of the things that would fall under general dentistry or any of the other specialties. I think orthodontics is kind of a niche in dentistry. We don't do things as evasively as the other specialties do. And I am also certified to give Botox and filler, so, you know, it will be a little bit of a different business model than most orthodontic offices. And that does bring me to my next point. There are 2 medical spas in the downtown district that are classified as personal services. The first of these businesses actually describes itself as a medical aesthetic studio on its website, and all this information is per their website. That first business employs a board-certified plastic surgeon and a registered nurse. They offer Botox and filler, and they also offer treatments that include PRP, and what that is they draw blood, spin it around a centrifuge, and then take that platelet-rich plasma and use it for other treatments. And the second business, also a medical spa, is owned by a nurse practitioner. They employ registered nurses, and they also have a board-certified medical doctor as their medical director per their website. They offer, in addition to those other services, weight loss injections, which are prescription medications. So although I am working with teeth and not the skin, I do feel like my business aligns with these medical spas. And so I respectfully ask that you consider me personal services instead of a clinic.
Thank you. Is there anyone else to speak on behalf? Dr. Rourke, anyone else?
No.
No? Thank you.
I do have a question for
Sure.
Dr. Rourke. Ma'am?
I'm so sorry.
Sure, no worries. Where's your practice currently held or currently hosted?
So I'm an associate currently. I work with Lucas Orthodontics in Nolensville.
And you want to open your own practice in
I
Franklin?
do, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Maybe one more from me. So you mentioned the things you don't do. Is that personal preference, or is that due to licensure?
I think that's due to licensure. As far as the extractions, I'm not sure with the state board, but when you take a specialty license in Tennessee, you can no longer practice general dentistry. Just by law, you would have to give up your specialty certificate in order to practice general dentistry or endodontics or surgery.
Okay.
So then by law, you're limited or you're prohibited from practicing?
Yes. Yeah, not all states are like that, but in Tennessee, you have to practice within your specialty. You can't practice outside of your specialty.
And correct me if I'm wrong here, but that would be you personally, if you were to employ in that business a general dentist.
Yes, but we would solely be orthodontics. And actually, my practice is set up differently than a general dentist is. Usually, a general dentist office has separate operatories, and orthodontic office is set up as an open bay. We will have just privacy walls just so patients can't see each other, but they're not in separate rooms like a general dentist office would, so it would be more difficult. I mean, I guess a general dentist could still work out of there, but there's no intent for that to happen. I would be the sole provider.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to open the public comment. Are there any citizen comments? Anybody here to speak in support or in opposition? Sir, if you could please identify yourself.
I'll be happy to. First of all, gentlemen, thank you for your service to the city. I appreciate it. My name is Matt Brown, live at 821 Walden Drive, also a Franklin alderman, but more important and germane to this conversation, I own Brand Metal, which is upstairs on the second floor of 212 East Main Street, and I'm actually in here in support of the appeal for a couple of reasons. One, I do believe that her business more closely aligns to a personal care than it does a true medical clinic. We've had a number of those medical spas. There was one right across the street from us in the new building for a number of years until they left. But beyond sort of the classification, the point I really want to make on this space, so the downstairs of 212 East Main Street has been vacant for about a year and a half. It was previously the state's child support services. Let's just say for 25 years, the state didn't put a whole lot of money into that downstairs space. The amount of work that's going to need to be done in that area is going to be pretty significant. It is not a good retail location, not only the layout of the space and the front of the space, but as we have seen, although the Harpeth Hotel has done a great job of sort of starting to draw traffic down Main Street, the reality is that retail struggles in that area. I have watched in just the few years that I've been at 212 East Main Street, multiple retail locations come and go from the next door building. And so what has to go in there is going to have to be some sort of personal care, professional services. But the amount of work required on that space, it's not going to be just anybody's small business. And so the fact that we've got, first of all, a young entrepreneur who wants to start her own business, I think that's applaudable. Adding to our downtown Franklin, no longer this sort of empty, blighted front of this building. I'd love to see a tenant in there, I'd love to see activity in there. And I really do think we need to find something that's going to be able to do it. It's going to be able to live there, stay there, be successful there. There is not a line of people. It's not my building, but I know for a fact there's not a lot of people trying to lease that building. And so I'd love to see an approval of this so that we can get her started on her business, bring some economic vitality to that block and to our main street, and clean that up a little bit. And I do think it's an appropriate space, and I'd be thrilled to have her as a neighbor. So thanks you for your time, and I appreciate all your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Brown. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak either in support or opposition? Seeing none, at this time, I would entertain a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close?
Second?
Motion to close and has been rightly seconded. In favor? Aye.
Yep, aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3 ayes, so public comment has been closed.
That's only 2 stories.
That's 208. I've been in there. I've got a couple questions for staff. So, I think this comes down to, or a lot of what it comes down to, is how you define these two use terms. And so I'm struggling a little bit. And I think maybe that's because it's hard to define everything. Can you guys speak a little bit more to that?
You're right. It is hard to cover every possibility within a definition. So, that's one of the hard parts of my position, is having to consider and think about when something is not a perfect match for a permitted use or for a definition, what does it most closely relate to? And again, just in reading the definition of a clinic, I felt it most closely related to a clinic than the personal service.
Would you read those 2 definitions again, please?
Sure. Clinic is defined as an establishment providing therapeutic, preventative, or corrective medical treatment or healthcare services. Activities include healthcare appointments, medical procedures, surgical procedures, emergency treatment, diagnostic services, walk-in medical services, and other health-related care. Services are provided on an outpatient basis, generally requiring a stay of less than 24 hours. Personal service is defined as an establishment that primarily engages in providing services generally involving the care of the person or person's possessions. Personal services include laundry and dry cleaning services, barber shops, salons, day spas, informational and instructional services, tanning salons, photography services, and, lost my next page. Other personal care services. Services associated with an animal are not included in the definition.
Can I ask you a question? I know my health insurance is different than my dental insurance and my vision insurance too. Where would you put an optometrist?
I would classify that as a clinic as well.
Okay. And one further question. So we've got a couple businesses that have been mentioned. I'm sure that we've got other businesses out there too that decide to expand what they do. How is that reviewed periodically within the city? Or is it?
Once a business is in operation, has gone through the proper channels and is in operation, we don't always necessarily know if they expand services unless we receive a complaint.
Okay. Well, I would love to hear more conversation about this. I don't know where to go.
For me, it comes down to
Gentlemen, if I may.
thinking about emotion.
If I may, a motion, please. Thank you.
That's exactly what I was about to say, Mr. Squires. I would like to make a motion, and I know it's a little bit uncharacteristic for the chair to make this motion, but I didn't see any other motions coming up, and I think this is the right motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve, I'm sorry. How do I say this? I want to disapprove or disagree with the administrative decision. Can someone help me with the exact language here?
Yes, so since this is an appeal, your choices are to uphold the determination or to reverse the determination.
Would reversing the determination allow it to be qualified something other than a clinic?
It would mean that the determination by the zoning administrator is inaccurate, and you're saying that it does meet the criteria for being in that location.
In this exercise, do we have to define what it does?
No, I mean,
Qualify as?
literally, it's uphold. You agree with the zoning administrator, or you do not?
And if we
Yes or
do
no
not, then
proposition.
who makes the determination of whether it is classified as something else?
Well, by reversing it, how do I explain this? It's not necessary for you to actually redefine the use or any of that. You're literally saying, we believe the zoning administrator's determination is not right, and this is permitted use.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It's exactly what I was looking for, yes. I didn't want
hesitate to
it,
have
I didn't want
you-
it to be wrong and then go back and continue a circular loop if we can avoid
Yes.
it. So that being said, I would like to reverse the interpretation. I'd like to make a motion to reverse the interpretation.
I'll second that.
And discussion on this is that I think, you know, Lee, you do this a lot, and I'm glad to have you as a member on this board. I know for a fact there are other optometrists that operate in downtown because I go to see one of them. And I feel like an optometrist can prescribe medications, an optometrist can treat. And having been a patient and having numerous family members be patients with orthodontists, they're there to correct your teeth in most instances. And I think the one concern for me that I would have in classifying this as a clinic is that maybe would you open up your orthodontic practice and then sneak a bunch of dentists in to provide general dentistry under the cover of darkness? And I don't think that's germane to this conversation. I don't think that's where Dr. Rourke is looking to build her business. And for that reason, I recommend reversing the administrative decision.
Are we permitted to ask staff questions during this discussion?
Of course.
If we were to reverse and staff were to learn that there were a general dentistry practice occurring, is there a mechanism to prevent that from continuing?
If we were to find out that situation, then yes, that is not what the certificate of occupancy would be issued for the use and occupancy. So then that could be a notice of violation, and then if not corrected, a citation to court.
Can I understand a little more, if you know, why a clinic would not be allowed downtown?
That just, when the zoning ordinance was updated, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen voted to not permit clinics in the downtown district. Again, there are multiples
Yeah.
that are existing legally non-conforming that are in the downtown
Sure.
district, and there are some that would appear to be in the downtown district, but are actually in a different zoning district that it is allowed
Right.
within this downtown area.
Okay, I didn't know if maybe there was some element that I was maybe missing about that. Okay.
So the motion has been made, I believe it was seconded.
It was.
It was. Do you have anything else to, any other thoughts on it? Yeah. I mean, generally, I think it's, you know, however this is defined, you know, I think entrepreneurship is a good thing. I think filling empty buildings is a good thing. You know, I don't know that you've got any, you know, further parking concerns here versus the prior use or a use as anything else. So, you know, I think the definitions aren't all that helpful for us. So,
I will note, just for purpose of the record, that the definitions here are a bit gray with respect to this particular business, and I think that's what's causing some difficulty for staff and for us. But just given the fact that there are several other orthodontic practices in this area, and given the gray nature of this definition, I don't think we're doing harm or damage to the definition if we were to grant the variance or to disapprove. And so based on that, I think I am in favor of disapproving because, again, we need to uphold
in
the,
favor of which?
of
Reversing.
Reversing, correct.
Got it,
Reversing,
okay.
I apologize. Because, again, I think we're doing is not doing damage to the spirit or the intent of these particular provisions or definitions.
I would tend to agree, and I think it's an opportunity for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to maybe further define that if it's important for them to do that. So,
I would only in closing add this, and then hopefully we can get to the vote. I think therein lies the reason that we have a Board of Zoning Appeals, is that I don't think it's fair for us to assume and to put on staff and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen to define every single possible application of every potential business now, present, and future. And for that reason, I'm grateful to have a position on this Board of Zoning Appeals where we get to make these difficult decisions for our city and for the entrepreneurs who want to build a thriving business in our community. So with that, I would like to call it a question, and I'll take votes. Mr. Scales?
In favor of reversal.
In favor of reversal, so aye. One aye.
it's an aye for
Mr.
me.
Reeves, in favor of reversal, and 3 in favor of reversal. The reversal succeeds. Is that okay to say? And now, I don't see any other items on the agenda. Staff, am I correct in that assumption?
Correct.
Thank you for that. That being said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
second?
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone is in favor. Motion carries. See you guys next month.